Legacy is what you pass down to your children and to your children's children. It's what remains of you when you're gone. Many hope to create it. Many more hope to live up to it. Very few ever succeed. The legacy of this show hopes to be about what Westeros means to us, and what we hope it may mean to a new generation of fans, and the generation after that. Boasting discussions that will endure, passions that will rise, debates that will make the small council jealous. With a combined 44 years of experience behind a microphone, the hosts and guest hosts of this show are dedicated to the fans' experience in reviewing anything from Westeros, Essos, and beyond. This group is not the House of a Lion, a direwolf, or even a dragon. This is a fraternity, a lineage, a house that endures beyond sigils, and aims to leave a legacy no other podcast has. So it's time to call the banners, for this is the House of the Empire.
Man, that legacy line really rings true now after last night's episode. Welcome. This is House of the Empire. That's Kieran. I'm Sean. And we're going to tackle tonight's big review, reaction, whatever you want to call it, of the latest episode of House of the Dragon. Turns out the newlywed is here. Mr. Arnold's back. What's going on, man? You're alive.
I'm very much alive. I am very happy, very excited, all those things, and really glad to be back, especially for this episode, man. Like, so much happened in this 7th episode that I kept thinking, okay, this is where the episode ends. This is where the episode ends, and it never did. So, like, I was just so excited about all of the things that transpired in this one. And I'm really excited that I was able to make it back for this. Missed a couple of weeks, missed y'all, but definitely had fun, getting married and going on a honeymoon and all that good stuff. And today I went back to work, hit the ground running. Everything's kind of nose to the grindstone now, and so that includes this. I'm ready to go.
Excellent, dude. Excellent. Well, congratulations. I know there were some speed bumps along the road, and you guys had to sort of. You had to counter your original honeymoon plan, and yet you guys made the most of it. So I'd say mission accomplished.
Yeah, man. It was crazy because we got married on a Saturday, and then that Sunday morning was when Hurricane Fiona made landfall about 2 weeks ago. This wasn't even Hurricane Ian going up the East Coast. This was Fiona. And it completely knocked out power to the entire island of Puerto Rico, which is where we had made our reservations for like 10 days. And me being stupid and not checking for, when hurricane season was, I didn't get trip insurance or anything like that. And so we had to kind of scramble a little bit and kind of use the money from the wedding. People kind of give you, cash for gifts when you get married and stuff. And we had to pull from that and pull from like our vacation savings and stuff like that. And we were able to book a flight out to San Diego instead. And they've got some gorgeous sunsets out there, some amazing beaches. They got a kick-ass zoo that we spent literally all day at. So we made the most of it for sure. And it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. Well, welcome back and congrats to you and Edna, and all the best.
And my wife, she's back there in the kitchen, and that's not because I put her
I saw her stroll back there for a second there. It's funny, right as you said, like, yeah, we're getting back to work. You saw her go by and like going to do stuff. She looked like she was on a mission.
She is.
Sorry.
She is. But we're just getting our house in order, after, unpacking and the gifts and laundry, and we left food in the fridge while we were away. And so, there's just some tidying up that needs doing. And as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going in there to help her. So I'm ready to get this going.
Also joining us, it's Sir Kieran, man. I'm almost scared to hear what you have to say about this episode, considering how we normally end up on opposite sides. So,
Wow,
but I'm excited to hear about it.
Directed by that total hack, Sapochnik. So
Uh,
no, I had a good day, and I'm totally ready to review this episode. I probably have a different opinion than you guys, but I don't know if it's on the pole or opposite like it sometimes is. So yeah, totally ready to get into this. I watched it just a second time a couple hours ago too. So
nice. Well, Zach, take it away, man. Your ship.
Interesting that you would you use that as the phrasing, because there's definitely a lot of ships involved, a lot of harbors, and a lot of water-related politics that goes on in this 7th episode. Written by Kevin Lau and directed by Sapochnik, as Kira aforementioned. Lots of events transpire, and I'll give my 2 cents on just opening thoughts, and then we'll go around the horn with other people's opening thoughts as well.
Or maybe we won't go around the horn. So
let's just get everyone else's thoughts now.
Yeah. So the newlywed gets kicked to the curb here for a second, and I will start with my thoughts, and then we'll go to Kieran, and we'll let Zach get back in here. Make sure he was crackling a little bit there for a couple of minutes, so we'll get him back in here in just a second. I see him in the green room, but my thoughts, dude, is it is far and away the best episode of this season. It did that Game of Thrones thing where everything that came before it built up to this moment. And I loved it. I loved the way it was shot. Yeah, there's not, big action pieces necessarily in this episode, but you didn't need it to be. It was terrific for what it was. And yeah, joining us again though, it's Mr. Arnold. What's going on, man?
I don't know, dude.
Our silenced you.
Well, okay. Confidentially, I'm on my backup computer. It probably doesn't look like it, but the hard drive on my primary broadcasting computer crashed on me last week. And just today, I made the purchase of a new one that's going to be delivered tomorrow. So I'm guessing it's this backup computer and its slower capabilities that's slowing me down. I don't know. It's the same internet. It's the same headset. It's the same, camera. I don't know what the hell it could be. But to echo what you were saying, Sean, I feel like it's the most complete episode that we've gotten of this season. Like you were mentioning, everything that came before it was kind of leading up to some of these moments. And we know from Game of Thrones seasons past that the 9th episode is kind of when a lot of stuff tends to hit the fan. And then the 10th episode kind of deals with the aftermath. And so we are in episode 7 right now, which means we are just one episode away from the really, really big stuff happening. And so this was a really good prelude, kind of like you said, leading up to some of those big moments, some of those big aspects that we've seen teased in trailers and stuff. And so to have that kind of payoff and have that kind of satisfaction, have that kind of continuation was really big and really important for the show, I feel like, because they needed for some of these elements from episodes 1 and 2 to have a payoff, considering how many time jumps they've had. This is like episode 1 Viserys that we're seeing here on the screen. And, episode 7 Viserys looks way worse. And his mind is leaving him and stuff. And so there's a lot that has transpired since the inaugural episode. And yet a lot of those things get hearkened to and get to play a part in how this episode unfolds. And I really respected the storytelling that this episode had.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking to myself watching the last episode. I know I came on here and I said that like it was kind of the first Game of Thronesy episode. Like it really like changed pace. Obviously, having the finally get to the current timeline, and this episode was even more Game of Thronesy and more. More like, oh, this person, oh, that person's the secret behind the shadow figure, and these guys are definitely gonna have a fight soon, and this person is kind of going behind this person's back, and all that stuff kind of happened a little bit more in a Game of Thrones type of way. It's funny when I was watching the episode, I was thinking like, you know what? If I just watched this is episode 2 and the last one was episode 1, it would kind of be a more Game of Thronesy show altogether. I think because
It's funny.
I didn't think the previous ones were. But.
It's funny you bring that up because I was reading an interesting article today. Actually, maybe you read the same one. Turns out that HBO wanted them to start this show at episode 8 and go from there. They didn't even want these 7 episodes to exist. And the showrunners were adamant that no, we got to have a backstory here so people understand the characters better and their motivations. And judging by the constant growth in audience numbers every week, to be the most watched non-sports thing in the world over the last almost 2 months now, I'd say they made the right decision. But that also makes me go, what the hell are we in store for next? Because the only image outside of the only piece of footage outside of the episode 8 trailer that's out there prior to that was one-eyed Aemon, older, swinging the sword around. We've seen literally nothing else from the final 3 episodes. And also, unless anybody didn't know, this is the final time jump coming up. That's it. No more with the show. Not just the season. Period.
There's another one? What the fuck?
I think they're going... It's got to be like at least 5 or 10 years. Because the kid with the eye is way much older.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Aemon, the kid who loses his eye, is canonically believed to be around 10 to 12 years old in this episode. And by the time we see him in the preview for the next episode, he is taller than his older brother. Like he hit some sort of a freaking growth spurt, and that really only happens, post puberty. So he's got to be at least 17 or 18 by now. So there's at least another 5 years that transpires between this. And Matt Smith still looks as freaking ageless as ever. They recast everybody else, but somehow Damon doesn't age a fucking day over the course of like a decade and a half. He's like it's like the Nicolas Cage of this universe or something. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Kristen Cole just changed his hair. He doesn't look older.
He's got like a few Silver Fox highlights up here.
I feel like they basically changed his hair to be like a little bit more adult. Like before he had like a little wave going, and then they were like, oh, just do what I did with my hair now. Like they're like, that's the only thing they changed to make him look a little older. But whatever. I'm not griping about it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a time. I wish I knew the exact details of the time jump. I do not. I'm just assuming that Aemon is probably 12 in this episode. He feels a little older than 10. So my guess is we're skipping 5 or 6 years. And
it's hard to judge because and I know we're going to get into this more obviously soon, but he seems like a very ahead of his years kid too. So he's made some pretty like wise statements during this episode. So I feel like he's more mature than his age might actually be.
I do have some thoughts on that, but I'm not going to touch on them just yet because I watched the behind the scenes video right after this episode ended. It's only like 5 or 6 minutes, but they do several different little interviews with some of the different stars of this episode, and it was pretty cool to find out that this opening funeral scene and the scene with the members of the court out in the courtyard was actually the very first scene that they shot in this show. It wasn't any of the previous younger actors or anything. Like, this cast, this group that you've got right here for this episode was the very first thing that House of the Dragon shot. And you can kind of tell by their interactions that their chemistry isn't there. The way that they talk to each other and the way that they look at each other and look away from each other, like, the scene was intentionally built to be awkward and tense. But to me, I felt like I could sense that tension and that awkwardness just from the knowledge that they didn't know each other. They didn't know how to play off of each other. They didn't know how to follow each other's cues yet. And I feel like that opening scene was enhanced almost because these people didn't know what was expected of them just yet.
Yeah, it makes sense that like they're socially awkward there, but it's at a funeral, so it's like that kind of makes sense. Like, I wonder, like, maybe that was even kind of placed in there because they were like, well, you guys should be feeling weird right now because you're at a funeral and everyone's kind of like thinking about where they're gonna go from here, like taking over the throne wise and sort of thing, you know.
I think that's spot on. These are a bunch of families that don't like one another, and there's a bunch of drama and tension. And when you haven't seen a family, like my family's not close, so that when we do see each other after, some of it's 5-6 years, it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of awkward, and eventually you get over that. But if they did that, I don't know if they did that by design, but if they did, I think it was the right choice to make. I love the way that was shot. I love just the stares and the glares even during that scene. It just comes off so incredibly well. It also explains why the media was wrong about this show, because for like half a year they said this show opens on a funeral. And it's clear that they thought that because that's the first thing they shot. Now, shows and movies don't typically shoot exactly in sequence. When a show's first starting, they might for the first episode or so, just to get their feet wet. But it's very weird to have shot your 7th episode before any of the previous 6.
Yeah, one time it was on a shoot and some asshole had every single stupid scene like in a different place. It made no sense. And I didn't even have to act until 3:00 in the morning.
Man, who would that be?
It's unrelated. It's that guy's fault though.
Don't blame
Yeah,
Zach.
no. No. Yeah. Do you guys want to? Should we break down the actual episode now? I feel like we're kind of getting into the episode without getting into it. So
yeah, initial thoughts, initial impressions. That's great. Zach, where do you want to go, man?
Yeah, I kind of gave some initial thoughts earlier when I mentioned that I felt like it was the most complete episode. Everything that it had been working towards kind of came to a head at that point. So yeah, I'm curious. We'll go to Kieran and then to Sean. Just within the first 60 seconds. Yeah, use the force to clear up your camera there, dude. you got way out of focus there. Kieran, with like 60 seconds, thoughts, impressions on this episode as a whole.
This episode to me, so it like beyond being the most Game of Thronesy, I actually did like a lot of the character development. I liked things thrown there. I mentioned last episode that I really enjoyed Laenor, and obviously he gets an interesting arc. I really like what they did with Aemon. I like the tension between the families was great. It was definitely setting up. You know, the winds are blowing. You're getting ready for a big storm to brew. Like things are sort of picking up, and I thought it was really exciting. The only thing that was kind of bummed me out was I thought we were going to get a little bit more intense on this, because the last episode seemed to be setting up to something really big, and now it was like a setup to a bigger setup. So, which is Game of Thronesy, but really enjoyed it. I thought that almost every character had something added, except maybe Kristen Cole didn't really go anywhere for this. He did his thing, but all the characters seem to have something added to their story, a little bit of lore for each character. So I think that was really, I thought it was really great. I didn't really have any problems with this episode either. There was very few, if any, quips about this episode. So it was great. And you'll see in my score ranking and my thoughts on it later that I really don't have any gripes.
That's actually a pretty big deal. When Kieran has no complaints about an episode, it must have been a good episode. Sean,
I'll think of
overall
something.
thoughts and impressions? Probably.
This is for me like a top 10 Game of Thrones episode ever. It's not top 5. It probably just squeaks in the bottom half of the top 10. But like the way it's shot, Sapochnik's a fucking genius. Pardon my language, but he is utterly incredible. And another interesting fact here, he wasn't even supposed to do this episode. He was supposed to do the season finale, and there was some sort of scheduling conflict, so they had to swap the episodes. And he came in and did episode 7. And if anything, he's added to his resume with a couple of the episodes that he's done this year that aren't big action pieces, and yet he's done them very, very well. I absolutely love this episode. It nails on every level for me. It would have been nice to maybe get one big action piece that's not the Aemon losing the eye. But all in all, like, this is one that I'll definitely go back and rewatch a bunch of times.
I think at some point you have to rewatch certain episodes in this season just in case you missed anything. I feel like, based on what you told me before, you kind of need to have like a very deep and very true context in order to understand some of the payoffs. And I think that one of those was going to end up being Helena, Allison's daughter, because she's.
We've lost him again. All right. Well, we'll save Zach's thought. We'll let him go back to Helena whenever he gets back in here. But one of the things I want to point out while we're waiting for him is this season in general, and this show in general. I've probably said it ad nauseum now. The book, Fire and Blood, is told from the perspective of an unreliable narrator. And in this specific episode, they go and make the biggest change from that literature, which happens towards the end of the episode, with Laner's bit. So we'll touch on that in a few. But one of our other co-hosts isn't here tonight, and I have a feeling that he's probably not very happy with that. But that's what you get when your source materials from an unreliable narrator. If you get married to it, you're probably going to be set up to be disappointed. I don't know what his thoughts are on it. I'd be curious to get them. But Zach is back with us now, and he was talking about Helena, which, if you ask me, like, she reminds me a little bit of. I think she's having dragon dreams, but she reminds me of that character. She's only in one episode that Cersei, as a child, runs into in the woods. Like, the show opens on that, and like, she's just spot on with everything so far. Zach, want to add to your thoughts on
that? I'll add to them as long as my computer doesn't crap out on me again. I'm sorry, guys. This is not the standard that I usually myself to. But 2 episodes in a row now, she's made some sort of a prophecy, and from one episode to the very next one, that prophecy came true. So I'm really curious to see if her prophecy in this episode comes to pass in the next one. And yeah, she reminds me of a seer. She reminds me of somebody who can come up with, a prophecy, and it'll come true. So, um, everybody kind of passes her off as a nut job, as crazy, as whatever. But I think she's going to come to have a pretty important role, and everybody's going to have to like really pay attention to the things that she says, because it could end up being an important piece of the puzzle as the show progresses. So um, I'm I'm intrigued by her character and the role that she plays, um, because everybody else's intentions and motives are fairly straightforward, but I don't think she has a side. I think she's just experiencing events as they unfold.
Let me turn the tables here on you guys for a second and ask you guys a question. Did anything, particularly massive happen in this episode that you never would have predicted happening? Like anything that just really made your jaw drop?
The death at the end, kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. I wasn't entirely certain where they were going with this or exactly how they wanted it to play out, but I was satisfied with how it ended up, because I thought it was going a different direction, and then they kind of surprised me at the very end there. Try not to go too spoilery just yet, so I'm not like jumping around, but I think that was probably the biggest surprise, mostly because I've been reading the Wikipedia and I knew that Aemond was gonna lose an eye, and I'd seen the trailers and I knew that exchange between Rhaenyra and Alicent was going to happen. I just didn't know when. So when it finally happened, I was like, "Oh, okay. There's the context I've been waiting for," and it made sense. It was satisfying, but no, I don't think it was surprising.
It's hard for me to say that anything surprises me because when you strap yourself into Game of Thrones, you're like, cool. Anyone can die. Anyone can happen. Anyone can change their mind. Anyone could have a secret deal with someone else you don't know. So I can't say that anything really surprised me. I mean, there will be some. It'll happen throughout the season and throughout the show, but can't say that anything really did that. I can't even struggle to come up with something that really.
If I had not read the source material or not even read the Wikipedia, I would have been very surprised at Aemond claiming Vagar as easily as he did. I would have expected it to be multiple encounters, multiple interactions, but he's able to go for a ride like instantly, and I think that is a testament to his toughness and his character. Um, and I'm curious to see what happens to him next, because I think he's got that kind of immature swagger that Damon had in the first couple of episodes, and it could end up coming to bite him in the ass later. But if I had not read that material and knew that he was going to find a way to inherit Vagar, then that scene might have surprised me, because that is basically the bride of Balerion the Black Dread, and here comes this fucking 12-year-old trying to speak High Valyrian to me like, bitch, I will eat you for a snack and not give it a second thought. But that didn't happen.
Yeah,
and so
he didn't even take Vagar out for dinner. Like first date, got to ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to dive into, just because we are talking about surprises. If anybody's watching this right now and you haven't seen the episode, this is probably the wrong episode to watch if you haven't seen the episode, but spoiler alert here. So in the literature, which again is told by an unreliable narrator, the big, WTF moment is Daemon has Laenor killed by his lover, and then Daemon comes in and kills the lover. Well, in this episode, Daemon and Rhaenyra find a way out for Laenor, and they're able to go. He's able to go be happy, basically. And it also helps Rhaenyra out in terms of her positioning. And I know there's a lot of people that wanted to keep painting Daemon as he's pure villain, pure villain, pure villain. It's like that's not how Game of Thrones works outside of Joffrey and Ramsay Bolton. I can't think of many other pure villains. There's a lot of shades of gray. And so I know some people are a little jarred by that because they want them to stay close to the source material. But I thought the show did a really good job, and the showrunners getting out in front of it before the season even aired and said, hey, yeah, a lot of the stuff in the books are going to be in it. But guess what? Those books are also told from an unreliable narrator's perspective, and you should not marry yourself to some of those outcomes. And if they're going to change something that big, then people need to be prepared for just, insane outcomes because you can't depend on the literature now. And I love that. Lean into it, but be willing to change things as necessary.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's not a ridiculous statement, but the LGBT community, especially on Twitter, has decided that they are siding with Team Rhaenyra now because they found an out for the gay character without having to kill him off. They gave him an escape, gave him a way to get out with his lover, and Daemon's statement about it's not about your name, it's about how much gold somebody has. It was only when Laenor actually got in the boat that I realized he was talking about both of them. Like, if you both have enough money, you can both go and live free and happy lives, and I will pay you to get out of my hair. And they took him up on it, and I was surprised, but also really happy that they went that direction, because too often you see shows with the tropes of killing off the black characters and killing off the gay characters, and they did neither of those with Laenor, and gave him essentially an out and a happily ever after. And that's a very rare thing in this day and age, and it was probably even more rare in the medieval times that this show is set in. So I appreciate that, like you said, Sean, they were leaning into the material by killing him off, but they didn't actually kill him off. So I thought that was cool.
I don't want to paint Daemon to be too nice, because he did have to kill a couple of random dudes, I believe, actually, to make it happen.
He's still an asshole. Don't bring back your Stannis feelings about Daemon. Now you're just gonna think he's great too.
I said before the season started, I thought he was the perfect blend of, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, Jaime Lannister, and if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, Vegeta. Like, he's especially in this episode, if you've ever seen Dragon Ball Z, Vegeta just off to the corner watching everything. Yeah. It was like, okay, so I was pretty spot on with that one. I'll take it. Gotta take the wins. They don't come often.
I really liked I really liked the Laenor send off, but I also think, if we're gonna veer off even more like Game of Thrones did, veer off more from, they had to, but as the seasons went on, they kind of slowly went off, and then they had to do their own thing. I wonder if Laenor could even come back for something. Like, he's written off, but who knows if season 4 he could come back, or I don't know when we get to other timelines and stuff either. But why couldn't he come back to do something that they could write him back in for, just to be part of a battle or something? So I would 90% count him out. But I would also 10% say he could come sailing back on a ship to impact something later.
I'll flip that around, and I'll say there's like a 90% chance he comes back later. I don't think it'll be soon.
Oh, well, that would be great.
And not that there's any source material to go off of that, because there's not. I just think, hey, you had this character that the community responded fairly well to, and he represents a lot. And despite all the machinations and subterfuge in the show and in the normal Game of Thrones, there's always room to do something with a character. The Hound, for all intents and purposes, was dead. Now, I'm not saying Laenor is coming back to be the Hound, but there's definitely going to be a time and a place where he might be able to do something, and I'm looking forward to that.
The Hound was gone, and who was the Lord Commander of the City Watch that ended up serving for Daenerys? He was another surprise for me
Barristan
in the
Selmy?
original show. Selmy. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting to see him again in the show after he got exiled from the king court, and then he ended up becoming an advisor to the queen. And so, like, Game of Thrones already has a precedent set up for seemingly writing off characters and then bringing them back and giving them good storylines. I definitely think it's possible with
What-
Laenor as well.
The craziest example of that is probably Uncle Benjen. He's gone for like 4 seasons, and then he just comes in, and he's pretty goddamn badass.
Yep.
But yeah, anything and everything
totally
can
agree.
happen. Game of Thrones.
And one of the things that happened, I think it's probably about time that we bring up this scene as well. It's something that they talked about in the behind the scenes video that is basically something that's never happened in Game of Thrones before, and something that very rarely happens in television in general, is basically a fight sequence among children. Down in the cave, you've got 5 young people all under the age of 15 who are feeling the pressures and the tensions of the politics of their families, and hearing whispers from their parents and repeating what's been told to them. Like, this is the Game of Thrones version of generational racism. You know, the kids themselves may not be inherently racist, but they hear things from their parents, and they kind of take on some of the traits and the personalities of their parents, and the next thing you know, they're behaving like their parents too. And this little fight sequence, I dare say call it a fight sequence, because there's punching, there's kicking, there's knifing, there's some pretty heavy hand-to-hand combat going on, even if it's amongst, you know, a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's a pretty intense sequence that leads to a pretty important piece in Aemon's story, and basically becomes the last straw that breaks the chasm between their families wide open just a scene or two later. So, if anything, I feel like that may be one of the most important scenes, if not the most important scene in the episode, and I dare say in the show up to this point.
I actually thought I thought it was Eamon's show. Like, I thought it was his episode, like, quite a bit. Like, the fight scene, like, weirdly enough, is actually really good. Like, when you see him punch, he throws a full-on credible punch, and then someone else comes at him and he throws a front kick that looks good. Like, that kid must be taking some Muay Thai or something like that in real life. But anyways, yeah, and you think that he's gonna bash in one of the other kids' heads with a rock, and you're like, oh my god, is this gonna happen? And then straight up, boom, slash, loses his eye, and his we know, seeing that right away, we're like, well, he's like, I didn't know that he was going to lose an eye, but like, I saw the slash, well, that's going to leave a mark. It's not going to be it's not a paper cut. So it was like, and we also had a girl come in and hit a boy, and then a boy come and lay a haymaker on a girl. And that was, yeah, it was really kind of a little bit of a shock to the system there too, just to see like, whoa, this is going to happen. And yeah, throat grabs another kid comes over. Like, I don't know all these kids' names, by the way. That's God. Like, I know Eddard and Aemon now, and like the other side of the family, I'm like, I don't know yet. Anyways, the fight scene was actually really good. And I actually really thought that scene was very important. Like you said, I thought that was kind of a big part of the show. It kind of stole the show for me, the whole sequence with the dragon and the fight.
I'm glad that you guys brought this up, because a TV show or a movie can go wrong in a hurry when you cast child actors. Sometimes it just does not go well. Whether it's their performance or the way a fandom responds to it. you can hurt your project when you start to get child actors involved. And even I was like, oh man, hearing them say, yeah, the story sort of shifts, heavily towards the kids after the last episode. I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. And like, even when you look at, say, not to, speak bad of the ill, but you look at the way that the Phantom Menace was received way back in 1999, and people speak aggressively today about today's Star Wars and always, point to the current generation for having problems. But it was all the original trilogy fans that ran Jake Lloyd out of town when the Phantom Menace came out. That's a fact. That happened. It just wasn't highlighted enough. Easily could have happened right here with any of the child actors. And while I don't know I know Ty Tennant, who's playing Aegon. That's David Tennant's stepson. The rest I don't know, and I bought all of their performances, every single one of them. And when you can cast a show that strong with child actors, I think that's incredible. Stranger Things is probably more proof of that. I've never seen it, but from what I understand, in the early seasons, the acting's incredible, even by the young performers. And when you get it right, it can be amazing. But boy, is it a huge risk.
Yeah, no, that can definitely speak to that. Tremendous acting in Stranger Things, like across the board. And I think that's one of the reasons why that show's been so successful. And you're right. I actually agree with pretty much everything you just said, because child actors, you can hire who you think is going to be the cutest little kid on screen, and they can't deliver a line worth crap. And, it happens. It definitely happens. Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I didn't even need to talk.
So I'm gonna try to give credit where it's due. I pulled up the IMDb page really quickly. Leo Hart as Jacaerys, Harvey Sadler as Lucerys, the two brown-haired boys that belong to Rhaenyra. Evie Allen as Helena, Ty Tennant, as you mentioned, and then Prince Aemond is played by Leo Ashton. So all of those young folks. Let me see. We've got Shawnee Smethurst as Lady Bela, and Eva Ose Gurning as Rhaena. So the two sisters that are daughters of Daemon. All five of them had just, let me see. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5 in the cave. Total of 6, with Ty kind of stirring the pot a little bit in the throne room when he gets accused of being the troublemaker. It's very, very compelling and fun to see, and I wish that this show didn't have quite so many time jumps so that we could get more time with these young folks. That I don't think we're going to be seeing them again because of the time jump, and that's unfortunate, because they made the most of their 5 minutes of fame, and I wanted to give them credit before they ended up, becoming extras in some Netflix show for their next gig or something like that. Like, they deserve all the rightful props that they need for what they did in this show and the contributions that they made.
I think if people feel the way that we feel about it, I feel like they'll maybe get a shot at something bigger. I mean, if the three of us all think that they stood out and it's Game of Thrones really watched, lots of people have an opinion on them. I feel like they like in Hollywood. I mean, not always, but like you get a gradual next step. Maybe they'll have like a 5-minute part, and then if they're good in that, they'll have a 10-minute part, and then eventually, I mean, unless you see someone who really sticks out and has the connections, then they might get a big shot. But anyways, yeah, I agree. Great across the board.
They only got 2 episodes, and the one thing they got going for them is they can say, show us where we were weak. Please show us where we didn't get the job done, because we got it done every single time we were on film.
Right.
And that's to get them in and get them out with a positive experience personally and professionally. That's pretty impressive in today's day and age.
Remember that shot where I was jerking off out the window? I was really good at that. You'll never get someone better at that than me.
Wonder what David Tennant thought watching that. Oh man, let me ask you guys. Not to step on Zach's toes here or anything, but I've been dying to hear your thoughts on this. The Greens versus the Blacks encounter at Driftmark after Aemon loses his eye. What did you guys think of that scene? Obviously, Viserys finally kind of loses it and has just had enough. I was in awe the entire time. What do you guys think?
Kieran, I'll yield to you.
Okay. I try not to butt in all the time because I do that. I get lost. I like to interrupt everybody.
I have a feeling I'll end up going on a tangent, so I'm going to let you have yours first.
I'll give you a minute to collect your thoughts. Yeah, I really liked it. I actually really liked Damon's part in it, and just his leaning back and kind of eating the popcorn. I said that to my wife. I watched it with her today. I was like, she's kind of sitting back there eating the popcorn, being like, "Oh, I wonder where this goes." I'm not afraid of anything. I will come on top. He seems like he's confident. No matter what happens, he will come up on top anyway. So it's funny that he's amused, even when he kind of laughs earlier in the funeral, when he giggles to himself a little bit. Like, he's just not afraid of anything. So that was cool. Sir Kristen Cole, kind of the way that he acted out, being told to run over and take an eye of a child, is like, and he says, I'm supposed to be your protector. The way that he acted out, like, I would love to do that, except everyone's here and I'm gonna do this. Like, I thought was really great. They showed an overhead shot of everyone when Daemon kind of interrupts Sir Kristen Cole, and then the other two guards go and grab him, which is kind of cool because that fight's going to happen. And that's just a thing on the outside. The kids you can see, it's very interesting where everyone is standing and how you can see, like, oh, all these people are standing here and all these people are standing here. So this is where the division happens too. And it's, for me, someone who doesn't know who's part of the Blacks and who's part of the Greens, like, I don't know anything about that. I know that the Queen is part of the Greens because she wears green. I know that, but like, I don't know. I didn't know where Corlys Velaryon was going to go. I knew that he fought us alongside Daemon, but like, I don't know what's going to happen between this and that. And I don't know who the king is going to side with at this point. Like, maybe we jump 5 years ahead and the Queen's gotten in his ear a lot and he's going to side with her over his daughter. I don't know this stuff because I don't read the lore at all. I don't look at the Wikipedia page. I just watch the show. So I thought it was really interesting, that overhead shot, to see who was with who was where. It kind of set up the match card in a way, when you see a fight card, you're like, ooh, looks like this person's not happy with this. And looks like this person is not really telling the truth about this. So a lot of storylines developing at the same time. The meetup with Alicent and Rhaenyra, I actually thought that was going to be a little bit like, because we heard that line, they see you for who you really are. I thought that was going to be a little bit more intense than it was. So I almost thought that was going to be a long dialogue, and I actually thought that exchange was kind of weak. So that's one thing I was kind of disappointed. I feel like that line was really built up in the commercials and the what's coming up, and I thought that line was built up as going to be part of a really passionate exchange, and I didn't really feel that was done there. So, but the scene itself was really cool. I love that it kind of set it up, and now I'm hoping for sure next week we're gonna get some sort of grudge. We're gonna get some sort of battle or ramping up or mobilization of the army. There's got to be some sort of attack or something brewing now. I'm hoping we see a little bit of action.
Yeah, I think we're coming to that. I just wanted to point this out. The middle picture there. I always forget this guy's name, but the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
I just call him Magneto.
He has two moments with Cole during this. One where Cole snickers at something that was said, and he sort of gives him some side eye, like, "Hey, kid, shut the fuck up." And then there's the other moment where Allison, tells him to go take the eye, and the Lord Commander sort of looks across at him, and like, to me, I read that as, you move one step and I'm gonna drop you.
I noticed that. Yeah, there was definitely, well, right after the line where he says that he's, his job is to protect the queen. You can see him looking across at him, and I believe he has his hand on his sword, or has his hand at a ready point. Like, if you do that, I'm jumping in. Like if this happens, I'm coming for you. So it was like a very, very tense moment between them, which is cool because there's a receipt for that jousting match that's gonna happen between Damon and Kristen Cole. That's gonna happen. That's gotta happen. If that doesn't happen, fuck this entire show. But yeah, there is also likely a meeting between them, and I mean, I'm kind of foreseeing that Kristen Cole maybe even kills him. So
The Lord Commander.
yeah,
I could see that. I don't know that happens or not, but I could see that.
Yeah, I don't know at all what happens, but I believe Kristen would win that fight. Although, I mean, in Game of Thrones, there's a precedent for dudes who are 70 years old who can still swing a sword. But
yeah,
I agree.
Zach, have at it, man.
So-
You've been waiting to dive into this one.
So I'm just gonna to follow up that comment about the Lord Commander. That is one Graham McTavish. He plays Sir Harold Westerling, and he previously played Dwalin the dwarf in the Hobbit trilogy. So he's got a pretty fair acting history. Apparently, by looking at his IMDb, he was also in Rambo. So the dude's been around, and he definitely shows his chops in certain moments in the show. He doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, doesn't get a whole lot of lines, but I feel like he makes the most of the ones that he gets. Keeping my fingers crossed that I don't get cut off again by my freaking computer. But here it goes anyway. This scene, in my opinion, makes the whole show worth it. It makes everything that we have been watching up to this point worth the watch, worth the wait. We have invested over 6 hours of watch time, 6.5, almost 7 hours of watch time for this moment. We have been doing countless hours of discussions and group chat threads and reading articles for those of us that want to try and sneak a little spoiler online, or people like one of our other co-hosts, Johnny, who reads the books and has a lot of source material. And so there's so much investment that leads to a scene like that. And honestly, if we didn't have a scene like that, then by this point in the show, I might have given up on it. I truly might have. We needed a intense exchange. We needed the king to show frustration and emotion. We needed there to be actual consequences for the things that people say, because other than the quip that Kristen gave in the sparring grounds, there really haven't been very many consequences for what people say. And Aemond faces one of the gravest consequences of all, losing a body part. And it leads to this domino effect of everybody's tensions coming to a boil.
I imagine. I imagine he's not going to be happy with that. It seems to only happen when he's talking for a while
It's
too.
like I feel like I feel like there's a meter with Zach that like every time he gets passionate about it, it's like cut off.
Fucking Littlefinger. Littlefinger was alive back then. Just keeps
It would have.
fucking
I
sticking
was
it.
really hoping that if he did get cut off, it would be right in the middle, be like, and you know what?
Just freezes there.
Yeah, just to like a super angry face. But oh
Well,
well, we got him back.
Now let's see if we can get through this. The floor is yours.
Motherfucker. I jinxed myself. I didn't even like knock on wood or anything. Like I fucking jinxed myself. I was like, fingers crossed. And then my computer's like, bitch, fuck you. So I don't. Oh God, I don't even know. I'm more mad at my computer than I am passionate about this scene right now. I swear to God. But this scene had been 6 episodes worth of the pot stewing, and everything finally started bubbling over. It hasn't come to a full boil yet. It hasn't like if you were making soup and you left the heat on just a little too much and you didn't stir it, it just kind of there's a few bubbles, but that bubbling over was really, really important for the characters. It was important for the development of the show. It was important for the division that we see in the room, like Kieran mentioned. The battle lines were drawn in that room. It wasn't the wedding with Laenor where it happened. It was in this room. It was in this scene, in this moment, in this point in time. We start getting an idea of what we are up against. And when Aemond flies off with Alicent and the Hightowers and his father, and he's riding the biggest fucking dragon in Westeros, you know that you're in trouble. And Rhaenyra knows that she's in trouble. Even though she got Alicent to show her true colors, she knows that they need help. She knows that they need support for her claim to stay legitimate. And it's so fascinating. It's so compelling. I love how Daemon has gone from being the instigator to being the observer. You know, I saw plenty of social media posts that were like, when you watch the family drama unfold and finally you're not the source of it. Like, he had been the problem for several episodes, and then in this one he's just kind of watching until he's actually ready to step in and intervene, and you see just how much he wants to care for and love for and protect Rhaenyra when he steps in the way of Criston Cole without any armor on. Criston's got armor, and he still cuts him off. And that was just a really important scene. And then, Kieran, I'm sorry, I've got to disagree with you on the payoff of the dialogue, because I think it was probably one of the best written lines in the whole fucking show. Alicent says, "Trampled under your pretty foot again, and now you take my son's eye, and to even that you feel entitled." And Rhaenyra doesn't even address her son's eye. She just says, "Exhausting, wasn't it? Hiding beneath the cloak of your own righteousness. But now they see you as you are." The cloak is off. The gauntlet is dropped. The battle lines are drawn. And it's all because of this exchange, because of this scene, because of this moment. In my opinion, the best moment in the whole show. And like you were saying at the top of the program, Sean, this is probably one of the best episodes of Game of Thrones made, period, because of all that it's able to accomplish in 1 hour. It is just a complete episode and a masterclass on creativity of the show and character development.
I hate both of you.
You know what?
This episode is not as good as anything from season 1 to 4.
Yeah. You got to be nuts.
No.
You're just 40.
No, that's not a true statement. That was I threw that out there so that Sean could be like, "I hate you." Bad.
I know we got to get to the wedding, which I thought was done very, very well before finishing up. But I feel like we have to talk about this character who returned this episode And it turns out, the way he was talking, it's almost like he plays fantasy football. Yeah, he got us. He got us Vagar. Yeah, we got Vagar on our team now. And even when he's talking to Allison, I'm thinking, wow, this guy's playing fantasy football. Like, Otto had some great moments in this episode. They're subtle, but they're great. Oh, I heard that. But like one of them, when he goes up to Aegon, he takes a look around to make sure no one's looking, and he just friggin' kicks his grandson, and then gets him up and drags him away. I thought that was an incredible moment. But yeah, didn't know Otto was a fantasy football player. Any thoughts on Mr. Hightower, fellas?
I actually, quick note. I like that. Like we're saying about making people older and younger really early in the show. They did a good job of making him look just a little bit older. He looks like just a little bit more haggard. So I thought they did a good job with him. Yeah, he seems like a character that will be able to do this, quite often. I mean, obviously he'll be involved because he's an important part of the crown right now. But I feel like he can be kind of just doing regular things and then be like, oh yeah, I'm still here and I still control shit. So, yeah, well, I made no bones about it that this was the actor that I was the most excited about coming into the show because I do really like the actor. But yeah, it's interesting that he seems to be playing the game without being in it at that time. Like he's got zero, he got thrown out. The king angrily threw him out and was like, I can't trust you anymore. And all of a sudden he comes back and he's like, cool, everything happened as I liked it to happen. And you're like, what? So yeah, awesome. Great character.
Zach, any thoughts on Otto?
This bitch. The fuck is he doing back? He couldn't be trusted. He was literally kicked out of court and told not to come back. And as soon as your right-hand man burns in his own house, you find us to bring him back? Why in the fuck would you pull this guy out of all people out of retirement? His daughter is still the queen. She is still manipulating. She still has kids. He still has an interest in how the throne gets managed. Why the fuck is he back? I don't get it. And I don't think I'm ever gonna get it. But I like his character, and I like that he's playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. I don't like that he is using his child and his grandchildren as pawns in his game. I don't care for that, because the only person who's ever been able to effectively do that is Tywin Lannister. He was able to use Cersei and Jaime as pawns when he actually assumed the role of Hand of the King under Joffrey. But other than that, I do not like the idea of manipulating your relatives for your personal gain. You either do that shit yourself or you don't do it at all. And to me, that is a coward's way of playing the game. And I don't like how he says eventually we will win or we will be victorious or whatever. Bitch, she's doing all the work. All you're doing is pulling the strings. And I don't care for it. He needs to actually physically do something. He needs to accomplish something to be worthy of my respect. Right now, I don't get why Viserys hired this motherfucker. I don't.
I'm guessing it was more Allison's doing than Viserys's, with how everything was. Things weren't left in a very good spot last episode between them. So
it is weird that it doesn't really get explained or broken into very much. It's almost like the hand dies, and they're like, well, there's only one guy who's got the credentials. Like, they're like, they're not like, oh, let's do a hiring process. They're like, oh, might as well
Right.
go to the emergency guy, but then keep him for years.
Could have been as something as simple. Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
You did a hiring and vetting process for the next members of the lifelong committed members of the Kingsguard, but you just go and rehire the guy that you fired when the Hand of the King dies. Like, this is the guy who's going to be the second most powerful man in the kingdom, and you're just like, oh, well, this guy's dead. I guess we'll just go hire the old guy. Like, so fucking weird. I don't get it.
Wouldn't be
It
surprised.
is kind of odd. Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if it was simply because, like, even in the last episode, Viserys warns Alicent about the accusations over the illegitimate birth. Can't help but wonder if that was a peace offering. Stop it with this nonsense, and I'll bring your bleeping dad back. Or if she suggested it, even it would have been nice to know either way.
From what, I mean, like, so when we see the king fire him, it is like a private type of matter. I don't know what, like, I don't think everyone knows he got fired. I think to the public eye, it's probably like, oh, he retired, but then the other one died. So he's like, you know what? I will come back and help you out. So I think, like, it makes sense to the public eye, but we don't know why Viserys did it, which is kind of weird that it's not explained. It's funny in the wedding, or not in the wedding, in the funeral, which is the exact opposite. It's funny at the funeral, the first thing you see is he's like, I got this shiny gold pin again. Like, he even kind of plays with it. And he's like,
how did you guys feel about the wedding between Rhaenyra and Daemon? I think we all knew it was coming because it was in the trailer. I thought that was like an end of the season thing, though. I didn't think that was going to be episode 7. I thought it was done very well, but yeah, I thought that was the end of the season. I thought for sure that was going to be the last thing we see this season.
We've never really seen a Targaryen blood bond wedding before. There's apparently like special clothing you have to wear and special rituals that you have to perform, and apparently your kids have to be witnesses to your incestuous relationship. And I don't fully understand all that goes on, but it was interesting to explore a different part of the culture. I didn't really have a problem with the timing because with all of the time jumps that we've had, I felt like things were accelerating at a quicker pace than what we originally anticipated. So the timing of it didn't really surprise me, but the actual ceremony itself seemed very intimate, very private, and yet this is a very big piece of the Westerosi puzzle. This is, my husband is dead and I'm taking my uncle as my new husband. Like, that's pretty big news. And it seemed like they were eloping almost, and not going to the Sept and doing it in the light of the Sept. They're doing it in accordance of Valyrian customs in order to make it even more private. And so I really don't know how long that privacy is going to last, or don't really see the logic behind it being as private as it was, because I don't think Viserys would have been able to stop it even if he had tried to forbid it. Like, his reach and his power is not such anymore that he could stop it if he wanted to, and yet they still went and did it in secret. That's the part that confuses me.
I don't know if they did do it in secret or if they just decided to not have anybody there. I'd be curious to get an explanation on that next episode, but I don't believe for a second they keep the secret from people. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do, and that's the direction that they go.
I think it's because that somebody was going to end up disapproving and trying to forbid it from happening, so they did it privately and then announced their marriage afterwards so that it couldn't be stopped or nullified.
maybe Well, do we know, like, did the wedding happen? How close to after Lenore was killed did they get married? Because maybe they didn't want it to be out in the public, so it was like not like as soon as he died, they were like, "Cool, let's get married."
That's true.
I mean, that would have really made it look like, really made it look suspect. I
liked
love
it.
actually. I love that all the marriages have that like hand in hand with a bow over it thing, and like I love that tradition goes throughout all the episodes. Secret marriages, no, like big marriages, everything. Like I love that hand in hand knot thing is just a thing like everywhere. I love that little.
Me too. I dig that. Yeah, I dig
One
it.
of those little things.
Something unique for Westeros, I believe. So
I'll get my wife to do that when we renew our vows. We'll see how that goes over.
I just lost.
Well, did I just ruin you with that line?
Yeah, I just totally lost myself. What are we at? Champions?
I think we got to do champions. Yeah,
Champions.
I think we're at our champions now. Yes, sir.
I got mine.
I have a feeling that at least 2 out of the 3, possibly all 3 of us, will be in accordance. It's Aemon for me. He loses an eye, but he gains a dragon. Like that's a pretty fucking sweet trade, and he had some pretty great moments, not only with the dragon, but with his cousins or whatever that he's related to them for now. And then in the room he gets tended to, and he basically says, I lost an eye, but I got a dragon. And so like he's very mature, very wise, and very understanding that in the long run it'll be better to have Vagar than to have his second eye. So he's my champion this week. Yeah,
he's my champion too. And I kind of alluded to it earlier, so not a really big spoiler, but I honestly through the last episode as well, when they teased him and gave him the pig and stuff like that, and he just seems like one of those kids who's like smart beyond his years. I feel like they're making fun of him, and he's like, oh, they're making fun of me, like big deal. Like and even the line earlier when he's talking to his older brother, goddamn names, and he's like, I gotta marry my sister and whatever, and he's like, I do whatever was asked of me, like like he's like, get over it. Like he's very sort of like mature about it. He's like, get over it. This is what we do. It would make our house stronger. Like he's acting like an adult already. And the same thing, the kid is going up to a dragon. He's like, you know what? Like, I might get toasted, but if I don't, I will have the most powerful dragon, or, one of the most powerful dragons. He's kind of like, he's kind of risking it all to be a big part of his family. And I feel like it's almost the start of a epic journey for him in this episode. I felt like he took over the episode. I liked his lines during the battle, during the fight with the other kids as well, where he says like, I'll feed you to my dragon. Like he's already acting like he's ready to step into being an adult, everyone's a hero in their own story. So he's, stepping in to be a hero. He's stepping in. He's like, I'm ready for this. I'm mature. I'm good to go, and I'm going to seize my own power. And I really thought it was a powerful story. And I really for me, the biggest problem with House of the Dragon to me is, like I mentioned every week, I don't really care about these characters. And this episode did a big stride in the fact that I liked Lenore in the last episode, and I made him a champion at one point. And I still, I feel like he might come back. I like what they did with him. And Aemon could be my guy. Like, he's out there. He's got a great tale so far. He could be my guy too. So I got some prospects now, and I like how they're adding on to the stories of each character. So yeah, Eamon's my guy today, and who knows, this might be my guy. I might be able to enjoy the show and cheer for someone instead of all these fucking pieces of shit on this goddamn show.
I think he's a giant piece of shit. I was for him when he was getting Vagar and how he was last episode. I was like, yeah. And then as soon as he comes back and is walking through the cave there, it's oh yeah, well, I got my dragon now, so let me whip out my dick and show you how big it is. And he stirred up all that shit in that cave, and got what he deserved, if you ask me. But
A dragon, yeah, he got what he deserved.
he has the potential to be an incredibly investing character for sure. But he's definitely not somebody I'm going to be rooting for. The performance is fantastic, but I just could not give him the champion of the episode. I wanted to give Damon the champion just because of how incredible the acting performance was again by Matt Smith. But I had to go with Viserys. Viserys from the start of the episode, from when they're standing there and Lena's getting dumped into the water to when they're all talking. Like, Paddy Considine's acting performance is just mind-blowingly good between him constantly looking back at Damon, and it's like this tension. It's like, do I go say anything or do I not go say anything? And then when he finally loses it as all that's going on top of, you can now tell he's starting to lose his mind a little bit, and he's starting to forget things and call people by the wrong name, and it's got to be hard, for characters who actually do care for him to watch. So Aemon was a close second for me, followed by Damon, but I got to give it to Viserys in this episode. Zach's given this episode a 9.3 out of 10, man. What are you giving it?
I'm going to give it a 9, and I think 9 is my highest this season. I'm pretty sure 9 is my highest this season. Quick thinking, though. I actually, even though I don't know if Viserys will win the champion of, all the episodes when we tally it up, like we are tallying it up, but I feel like if you did an overall, who has been the champion of this show so far, I think Viserys is it's going to be Damon or Viserys in people's minds, I think. But yeah, you're right. I feel like he suffers a little bit from the fact that we know he's going to go. I feel like he suffers in being, someone that people latch onto because we know he's probably not going to be in season 2. Like, there's like a 0% chance he makes it to season 2. So I think it suffers from that. But yeah, Paddy Considine, we could both say it 5 times an episode and it wouldn't be any less true.
Absolutely, 100%. So you give it a 9. Zach's going 9.3. I'm going to go 9.2. I thought I'd be the highest one here, but I feel like I still need to leave a buffer because if it's this good now, there's got to be an ability to go even higher. So 9 for Kieran, 9.2 for me, 9.3 for Zach. We'll be back.
Not a top 10 episode, though. No way. Not even. No way.
For me, it is. I'd have to do my rankings, but I could totally see it being like that 8, 9, 10 area.
I've never ranked episodes before, so it would be hard for me to really say that, but
a hard show to rank episodes for, a hard franchise to rank episodes for too.
It's hard for me to rank this, not knowing where it's going and what it is and what I go back and I watch season 1 and I'm like, this is the greatest fucking shit ever. But I'm sure when I watched season 1 the first time around, I wasn't like that high on it. Like, I wasn't like, this is the greatest show that's ever going to exist. And it might be, but.
Well, that's going to do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. What did you think of Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, episode 7? Comment down below. We would love to hear your thoughts on that episode, on our episode. Do you agree? Do you disagree with some of our takes? Who's your champion? What do you give it out of 10? Let us know in the comment section down below. He's Sir Kieran. I'm Sean. Big thanks to Zach for coming out tonight. Johnny's probably pissed off somewhere about the ending of this episode. I don't know. We'll find out next week. But in the meantime, stay safe. Good night.